So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Karen van de Vanter. I'm working for Accenture. So Accenture is a very large company providing services, solutions in strategy, in consulting, technology, digital, and operations. It's a group of 400,000 people, and we are located in 120 countries. So my role in Accenture is I'm one of the directors of innovation. And I'm really specialized more in the European, Africa, and Latin American market, but working also with my colleagues in North America, Canada, and Asia Pacific. And our objective is to roll out what we call studio. And the objective of the studio in our company is to develop design thinking sessions with clients and to do rapid prototyping. It means that we are working a lot on all the emerging technologies, so the blockchain, the IoT, and the immersive reality.
And you've done a lot of research in this area.
Yes, and I will share with you a couple of outcomes. We just conducted a survey, a consumer survey on digital, regarding the expectation of the consumers regarding virtual reality, but excluding the gaming industry.
Okay, so later on in the panel, we'll come back to you and talk about some of those survey results.
Hello, everybody. My name is Louis Cacciotolo. I'm the CEO and founder of Vroom. Vroom is a media totally dedicated to augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. And on Vroom, I mean, it's a website and a blog, and also we are very active on different social media, including in China on WeChat and Weibo. We are in 3 languages. We are the only media currently existing about totally focusing on augmented reality and virtual reality, being in 3 languages, English, Chinese, and French. And we are currently growing very fast. We just opened a few months ago, and we already have exponential growth in terms of traffic, and we can see that 2016 has been a significant year. This is the year we were launched, but especially significant for virtual reality because we can see by the traffic growth that it's interesting a lot of people, and beyond B2B now. And this is clearly our positioning is to be to bring information and content and distribute content in VR and AR to our audience.
So I'm Sebastian. I work for a small startup called Alibaba, which is based in China, but a global company more and more. The reason why I'm on this panel is because we see our position as being in innovation of retail. And we're trying to find always new ways to engage with our customer and have customers engage with brands or with distributors or with products. And AR and VR are definitely ways of doing that. So we had our first big experiences during 11/11 this year. We can talk about it a bit later. And we're definitely looking at that space as an opportunity to grow the relationship between consumers and brands.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen that a couple of the past speakers have had references to Alibaba and virtual reality during the past day and a half. So it's definitely something that's being noticed, and we'll look forward to hearing more about that.
We're glad about that.
Okay. And Olivier?
Hi. I'm the chairman, president, CTO, and CMO of myself, which makes it easy. I don't have a lot of management overhead. And I'm kind of techno screener, so I look at technology trends. I publish a lot on my blog, including this infamous CES report I've been publishing since 2006 every year. And I'm looking at new trends, so VR and AR is part of this, and I try to understand the dynamics of this industry, try to understand the ecosystems, the platforms, try to look at where it's going to be used, what are the trade-offs, and sometimes where is the overhype of the market, try to get through the overhype, identify where it could kind of grow at some point. Mm-hmm. That's my understanding of this market.
And there is a question coming your way later about trends in the forecast that you see for the future. So I'm glad you mentioned that that's one of the things you're doing.
Yes, we could talk about this. It's bullshit most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the forecasts are nonsense. I mean, I've seen one forecast on VR AR, which was about $120 billion in 2020, something like this. It's the same bullshit as for IoT. I mean, nobody has a clear idea of where it's going to pop or what are going to be the key usage, both B2B and B2C. There's probably going to be a lot of innovation, but it's very hard to forecast it. Look at anything. I mean, telephone back 1 century ago. Look at tablets. Look at smartphones. Nobody had the simplest idea when it came out of what it became. So it's up to innovators. It's up to content providers, up to large companies, up to startups. Nobody knows. I mean, innovation comes from people. It doesn't come from spreadsheets. So that's what we have to look at: what people do, what works, what doesn't work. My angle on this is not just look at the business and marketing view. It's also to look at very basic things called sociology and physiology. I mean, just look at how people behave, what's good, not good, with regards to basic human things. I mean, and sometimes it enables me to, and people to kind of have distance, take some distance with the new trends.
Well, talking about how difficult it is to predict the future is a perfect segue to the first sort of where I want to start this conversation, because I think if this panel were a year ago at China Connect, that it would seem like a very hypothetical conversation. And then something happened last year called Pokemon Go, which I'm sure everyone in this room is familiar with. And that was a very concrete example of how brands could see, wait a minute, there's a way to monetize this. You know, this is going to be fun. And it really changed the landscape for brands to start thinking about what they can do. So I'd like to sort of ask, all of you, to any of you to comment here on examples like Pokemon Go of what that means for brands, how they can start to see how they can use these for branding or even to make money. And maybe Sebastian, start with you, because you've been working on this already with retailers, starting with 11.11. So this might be a good way to start there.
So what we launched on 11.11, which is called Catch the Tmall Cat, is very much along the same line of Pokemon Go. We were working on it before Pokemon Go became popular. And I know the Pokemon Go guys pretty well because they used to be at Google, where I used to work with them back in the day. What I think was really interesting about the experience is gamification. We know is definitely huge, and it's especially huge in China, probably bigger than in other markets. But what was really impressive is just the sheer volume of people that went out and actually played with this game, because there was like 70 million people that engaged, and then there was like a real physical aspect to it, because they went into stores, they went into Starbucks, they went into KFCs to play the game and deal with the promotion. And I mean, when you think about the potential that represents to drive store traffic, it's just humongous. And when I was thinking about the future of retail and what we're trying to do when we're thinking about the future of retail is to say that like retail isn't about, and even though we're a totally digital company that comes from the digital age, but there's definitely applications that create the link between the two. And in the investments that we're making today, we announced a few months ago that we're buying a chain of malls in China called In Time. The kind of stuff that we want to do with that is to see where the new retail is going. So we don't believe that everything is going to move to digital. We think that the store has like a huge potential for development. The question is, what is the store of tomorrow going to be? And how do we create the link between what happens in the digital space and what happens in the physical space? And so this example specifically of Catch the Tmall Cat was exactly that, right? You start from digital, you start from a Taobao app, and you go into a physical world and you engage both physically and virtually with a brand. And it was very successful by the sheer, but it was just a first step. I think there's many, many things to come. And a lot of it, as you were mentioning, will come from the technology, which is going to develop. I don't think the technology is where it needs to be today. And then just, people being creative and smart, and then obviously doing something that, consumers will want to engage with.
Can you give us a specific example of how you work with a retailer or a brand like Macy's? I think it's one of the ones that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so so Catch the Tmall Cat is like AR. What we did with Macy's is more VR, and we did that for 11.11 as well. And the idea was to take 8 retailers, 8 global retailers. So Macy's was one of them, Costco was another, Woolworth, I think, was the third. And the idea is that they would create a digital world that people could interact with and have like, you know, between 30 and 50 products, and they could like walk as if they were like in New York, in Macy's in New York, from, you know, the comfort of their own living room and kind of pick up a product, look at it, switch it around. We're working already on a second version of this, and I was lucky enough to try it out last week, and it's actually pretty cool. The thing that goes like beyond that, so I think it's great because it allows people to, there's creativity involved, there's new ways of doing things. Is it an end all? I think it's really like only a first step. And again, I think one of the big issues that we have technologically when you're thinking about this is that in order to engage in virtual reality, you need to be in your living room, right? So that means that like it really reduces the potential because you're not always in your living room. You can't be walking in the street with a mask on. I think one of the things that we did, which was big, is that we democratized, we made it available for everybody because you could buy the mask on Tmall for like 1 RMB, right? So anybody could like experience with virtual reality. You have a phone and 1 RMB, and then you're able to engage. What I think is going to be more interesting is the new technologies, which probably will be with glasses, which then people can wear in the street and then have a virtual reality or an augmented reality experience. That will really change things.
Okay. We'll get to the challenges in a minute, but before we jump ahead there, are the rest of you on the panel, are there things you've worked on yourself or just seen at places like CES where brands have been using virtual reality or augmented reality, mixed reality, that you found was quite successful and is worth talking about as an example of what Alibaba's done or what Pokemon Go did?
Let's say from the demands which are coming from our client side. So I'm talking about business to business, not consumers. Clearly today, the one which are ahead in terms of industries are all the manufacturers, most of the luxury companies. And we have a lot of demand also from transport, let's say, companies. And it's true that they are using virtual reality as a very impactful marketing media because virtual reality is so immersive that it's an experience that you remember. So today, let's say, this industry are really ahead. But what is interesting, we see that in the near future, so near future is 6 to 12 months, there is a significant investment which are coming now from all the health services. And this market will be probably more predominant. And when I say we conducted a survey, so this time for the customers, it's a survey that was covering 26 countries and 26,000 people. The top 3, let's say, requests that came. So we asked to the people, what are your expectations in virtual reality outside the gaming part? The number 1 answer was definitely we want to use virtual reality in order to learn. So accessing to new skills, learning in a very funny or more friendly environment, that was the number 1. The second one was connecting with friends in a virtual reality environment. And the third one also was more dealing with shopping, and Alibaba is a perfect example, using virtual reality to support, let's say, shopping or see the kind of clothes that maybe you want to get.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Olivier, I think you're...
Yeah, there's 2 things. First is what is the platform, and then how is the chicken and egg problem work with regards to brands and content. Pokemon Go was not a VR app per se, based on VR glasses like the Oculus Rift or HTC Vive. It was based on the smartphone. Why was it working? It was working because it was a good game and enabling people to move around in the city. And it was based on a platform that was already in place. I mean, with billions of people having already a smartphone. By the way, it was used a lot during 3 months, and then it nearly died. I mean, it's old-fashioned now, and it was 6 months ago. So it's not durable. So nobody replaced it. So it tells a lot. It explains that if you want to build a strategy, particularly a brand strategy, you have to build on a platform that lasts long, which lasts more than 3 months. So you need a platform that has the power to attract usage and customers for a long time with a lot of variations, with a lot of different applications. Most of the time, those platforms are generic ones. Smartphones, tablets, personal computer, the 3 key device, TV as well. So the 4 key screens have this status today. And no other platform has this status today. So the big question is, what is going to be the next platform, format-wise? Is it the Vive, or is it a future of Google Glass? The reason why we don't have the answer is right now, we are exactly at the same point in time that in 2003 for tablets. Maybe some of you remember, I worked at Microsoft back then, and in 2002, Microsoft and various companies like Toshiba launched tablet PCs. But it was shit, it didn't work. It was too heavy, it didn't have good battery, didn't have good UI, it didn't have the touch user interface, it was using only a stylus, so it didn't work. And we had to wait 8 years until the iPad got launched in 2010, and then the tablet boomed just after the smartphone. So we need that platform. So most of the people who try to do some techno screening think that the platform is going to be kind of Google Glass Plus. Mm-hmm. But Google Glass is like the tablet PC. It's a 13 degrees angle. Google stopped it. They tried to do something else. You have Magic Leap, which is a kind of dream company. Mm-hmm. They raised more than $1 billion in the US, but they don't live up to the mm-hmm. promises. So what is going to be the platform that everybody's going to use? Then the content, mm-hmm. the other question. I don't believe brands are going to drive content firsthand. Brands will surf on an existing trend. They will surf on the fact that you're going to have a lot of games, for example, for consumers, like Pokemon Go. Games are driving VR today, and they're probably going to drive a lot of VR and AR usage. Beyond games, you have very generic applications, those we want to use on a continuous time, for example, getting information on what's on the street, and restaurants, and shops, and so on. But it has to be a platform, so we need standards. We need that. If we don't have a standard, if every manufacturer has its own platform, its own content, its own software, it won't work. Mm-hmm. So we need to have somebody who wins that some way, or collaboratively speaking. There is a geopolitical issue, which is, if you look at who's controlling that business today, you have mostly Asian companies doing hardware, or manufacturing at least. You have Europeans who do kind of content sometimes, some gaming companies like Ubisoft and so on. And you have the Americans who control the platforms. Mm-hmm. That's been the case for all platforms. So is it going to be the same for VR? Is there an opportunity for Asia or China and Europe to build something, vs the Americans? Or is it going to be the same story all over again with Google and Apple and others controlling the platforms, and we do the content and the Asians do the hardware? Are the Chinese, which is the largest geo, be able to create their own platform or their own critical scale for content and platform from content? That is the big question, because with no platform, you won't have a broad consumer spectrum of usage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we'll get to that question in a minute. And this is a really pessimistic panel. You guys really want to talk about the challenges and the obstacles, so we're going to get to that.
Oh, we have you can talk about usage, but it's. Why we are, I don't think we are so skeptical, but we need to be skeptical because we are in the early stages. Yeah. So we need to look at what are the key success factors that are going to drive this business up. And why is it exciting? It's exciting because if you look at the smartphone and tablet business, it's kind of sluggish now. There was a big growth and now it's stable because emerging countries are starting to be saturated as well as developed countries. Everybody needs to find a new platform, a new wave. So people dream about this. Yeah. And but still, there are so many technological issues to solve.
There are a lot of issues. But let's hear from Louis, because I think he had a comment he wanted to make earlier as well, before we move on to the challenges.
Right. So I very much agree with Olivier when he's talking about this platform issue. In the meantime, where brands can actually play a role is because right now we actually it's very difficult for people to get engaged with virtual reality because of the technology constraints, and we will go back to this in a moment. But we need to educate the consumers to actually, we know this technology is going to happen because it's very clear. We don't know how it will happen, but in the meantime, we need to manage this time frame where we are at the beginning of this period and the killer app or the killer platform hasn't happened yet. In that meantime, brands can play a significant role because they can provide the consumers. Brands have an influencing role. And they can afford actually to, with their marketing bucks, they can afford to propose unique experiences to the consumers, which will actually make them like know what this technology is about, make them familiar with the technology, make them like willing to embrace this technology until the technology is ready. Right now, what we saw in China, for example, is this like huge like kind of like excitement around virtual reality and augmented reality in the past few months, and suddenly this is a kind of what everybody's calling the China winter. Because I think things have been too fast, and there was not enough quality content, there can't be quality content because it's not commercially viable right now, except for marketing content, which actually could bring and could help people like give people this kind of like quality they are expecting, the kind of experience they're expecting, and the kind of like renewal or refresh the content regularly without expecting too much in terms of like return on investment, like immediate return on investment, like sales. And this is where, I mean, this can actually really help brands position themselves as being like even very old brands, like historical brands, luxury brands, providing like very innovative like brand engagement to their like opportunities to their consumers, and at the same time like make consumers like know what the technology is about. And I think that can bridge the gap between the current state and the moment where actually it will really become very easy for everyone to use virtual reality.
Yeah, so we're not there yet, and the lack of content is one of the obstacles or challenges. And also, as Sebastian, as you said, you have to be in a room, you know, stationary, not out in a retail environment. That's another one. The expense, you know, the high quality headsets are quite expensive. The inexpensive ones don't offer a quality experience. There are even hygiene concerns as well, and there's a dizziness factor that some people suffer from when they're using it. So there are a lot of challenges. You know, what do you see happening in the future to kind of resolve some of these issues? Or are we talking about 3D televisions which never produced, you know, the potential, that never realized the potential that the industry thought? Are we looking at something that's going to be gone in 5 years, or is there a way out of this?
Let's say, as Olivier mentioned, in fact, I will not give some prediction for 2025 in terms of figures, but let's say the success factors, can use that. Clearly, the evolvement of the technology is one, because as long as the technology is there, but there is still, let's say, a small gap in order, let's say, to be smooth. So if we are able to move, let's say, in a couple of years to a common platform, we predict that probably the adoption of virtual reality will be as quick as the adoption of television, for instance. But it means also that there is, on top of technology, there is battery issue and duration, which has to be fixed. And ideally, as you said, for the moment, when you use a virtual reality headset, you cannot move too much. And if in the future there is a solution which allows us to get a virtual reality headset with a virtual reality mobility, if I can say that all together, then the market will be probably a huge explosion. We predict, let's say, a softer market, even if the technology is fixed. As we say, as long as, let's say, the battery issue and the fact that you cannot move is not fixed. We predict that the adoption will be probably similar to the tablet adoption. And finally, the pessimistic scenario will mean that the virtual reality will be still connected with the gaming industry, which is huge, but not so much the professional industries. And one of the reasons could be security, privacy issues. So we're not believing so much in this pessimistic scenario. I guess the truth in the near future will be one unique platform, and probably also few dominant players in terms of equipment. Because it's true that today we have for virtual reality the Vive, we have the Oculus Rift and some other ones. Mixed augmented reality, we have many products with HoloLens also technology, Google and so many other ones. So we need to clarify also a little bit the market. And ideally, maybe some of the headset will converge to more, let's say, compatible product.
Anyone else?
I can spec you the future successful product. It's science fiction, but not so much. The perfect product would be an AR set of glasses, a bit like the Google Glass, with a field of view of about 200 degrees horizontally, at least 100 degrees vertically. It would use a mobile chipset, so low power, like the ones we have in smartphones today. So it would last one day, not just 1 hour or 2 hours, like with the headsets we have today. And that would run both VR content, which would be used in an isolated way, so you could be isolated from the outside, or you could view content on top of what you see. So it could be a kind of dual mode, VR, AR system. And it would be fluid, so no dizziness factor and so on. And it would link to a broad set of content. But you know, if you look just today at what we have, take just the Samsung VR, Gear VR, or an equivalent from Lenovo or others, you know what's the main source of content? It's the new set of 360 cameras. It costs less than $200. I saw at the MWC in Barcelona that there was one Chinese vendor, I forgot the name. It's not a famous brand. So they launched the first smartphone with a 360 camera, so 2 sensors on 2 sides of the smartphone. And so that can be used by HTC Vive or whatever. So I believe a lot in consumer-based content to drive the adoption. It's like video cameras 20 years ago. So we need that first hand. Second hand is we need more games. And third is we need a minimum set of standards. There are standards today. Most of the people developed the same platforms, like Unity, for example, to develop games. Most of the VR videos are published in the web VR format, so it's becoming standard. If you look at YouTube, I don't know the equivalent in China, but Yoku, so video sharing platforms throughout the world, they can share the same videos created by the same cameras. You have more professional cameras which are being used by TV channels. For example, in the US, there's a company which I think their name is Team VR. They are broadcasting VR content with stereoscopic VR cameras, and it enables you to watch a sports event with your HTC Vive or Oculus Rift. So you already have some technology. But there is one other technology I want to mention. I think it's going to be a huge evolution. It's a technology that we don't speak a lot today. It's called volumetric video. Have you heard about this? So volumetric video is the way to capture a scene like this room I will explain you how it works so that you understand what's the benefit. So you put different cameras throughout the room or in a studio or in a stadium, and it will capture a 3D view with different angles, and based on that, the system is able to reconstitute a 3D version of the world, that it views. 3D meaning objects and facets like we do in 3D. And it will be able to play the video from any angle dynamically. Meaning if you wear a VR or an AR glass and you move around, you will see it as if you were moving around in the real place. Mm-hmm. So that's the basis of a thing that was in Star Trek called teleportation. You don't move, but you can move around something that's distant. it's going to be huge.
Okay.
This is
Cool.
going to be huge, I think. But no, not just for this. The rest is valid. But I think, and one of the reasons why I believe it's going to be huge is because I have seen it in France experimentally, and I have seen the emotional value that it's driving. Let's say you capture your grandma or your kids when they're young with this system, and you can play that anytime later. It's incredible. I mean, a picture is raw compared to this. It's so huge. I mean, it drives people's heart. I mean, I think it's going to be very powerful, and I believe mostly in technologies which drives people emotion, and this one is going to be incredible. Look at the demos on the web. Look at YouTube and so on. Look at the demos. Type volumetric videos. Go see a company called 8i, for example. Look at what they do. That's unbelievable. It's really very good.
Well, this is getting into what the benefits are of mixed reality, is providing this very powerful, personal, immersive experience. Sebastian, I don't know if you have anything to add on this, but before you do, I'm going to tease you a little bit that your answer that Youku is the YouTube equivalent is a very Alibaba-centric comment. If you worked at Baidu or Tencent, I think you might have said something different.
I'm sorry.
Just teasing. Anyway, do either of you have anything you want to add on this question? How we can move past the challenges, with any other predictions or...
Yeah, I think the challenges are so many right now. I think the influencers can play a very big role, and social media will definitely be also a platform that can actually help. I don't think this can actually erase or get over all the technical challenges we have right now, but this is something that can actually help people get into this mindset. Virtual reality is definitely a new lifestyle, and this is where the influencers can play a very big role, and also to make people be less expecting less. Maybe you were talking about 360 video. Right now, 360 video is the necessary step to this massive adoption of the market for virtual reality. And by the way, you mentioned this volumetric video experience. I mean, if you have time after this panel, you can go on Room booth in a moment. We don't have a volumetric video because we don't have a big enough computer, but we have an experience which is done in photogrammetry, which is extremely similar to what you say, and I recommend everyone to come and check this out.
Anything to add? No? Okay. I have more questions, but I do want to open it up. We've got about 7 minutes left. Are there questions in the audience? And I'm not sure if we have mics around, so you may have to shout. Oh, we do, maybe. Any questions? We have a great group of panelists here. Anybody? Okay.
You have to guess the questions.
Here we are. We have one.
Looking at China, what's the penetration of high-quality mask in the market? That would be a barrier for brands that want to start to do something now. Is the penetration in the market at the moment?
You might be in the best position. Oh, do you know?
I have the numbers if you want.
Oh, okay.
But I have the worldwide numbers, not for China.
But not for
But
China.
the total VR glasses, including the Samsung Gear and so on, it's less than 10 million worldwide. So it would mean that in China, let's say they have 40% or 30%, it makes a couple million. So in penetration rate, it's very low compared to smartphones and even tablets. Today, when you look at the predictions of sales of... But the cheapest is the easiest today. I mean, those VR systems where you put your smartphone, it costs less than $100. You have the cardboard-like systems between 25 and $50, and I presume in China it's very cheap. So it's going to drive a lot of the adoption. But the number of HTC Vive plus the other one, Oculus Rift, today I think it's less than 2 million.
And If you think about Oculus, the issue in China is that you cannot access Facebook in China, so you can't access their content. So even if you bought an Oculus Rift, you wouldn't be able to play any of their content. So that also reduces potential of growth.
Yeah, that's why the smartphone-based systems have more potential today. And today, it's very difficult to have a broad adoption of the Oculus and HTC Vive. It's too complicated, it's too costly. I mean, you need to have a cable, sometimes it can work Wi-Fi, but you need to have a cable of a $800 device connected to at least $1,000 PC, and most of them you need more, $2,000 PC, so it makes 3,000 together. And if you have different accessories on top of that. So it's not consumer grade. I mean, it's too elitist. So in the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be smartphone-based systems, raw content, 360 degrees cameras producing these, plus games, plus maybe some verticals like the ones you mentioned, healthcare, which is one, it's more B2B for doctors, but you can have like real estate, when you want to choose a house or an apartment, travel, which is going to be a huge business probably. You need to find those use cases which are frequent. Yeah. You need at least to go on vacation 2 or 3 times a year. I don't know about China, but at least once a year. You don't switch apartment every 6 months unless you're a student or very young. And the older you get, the slower you change. So we need to find the use cases where there's a lot of frequency. That's the so-called toothbrush law. You need to use it on a continuous basis.
One of the things that I've seen in terms of like application, which is kind of nice, is for to help charities to showcase. And so there's this guy Alexandre Mars, who's French, based in New York, and he's been doing that. What he does to like get people interested in a given charity is that he takes them into a room, gives them a pair of Oculus, and then sends them to India in a village where they can see the school that needs $100 so that children can learn. And that, talking about emotion, that works incredibly well. So there are applications for it, and even if the technology isn't where it is yet, I mean, this is one person that can share with a whole bunch of people to then have an actual impact on people's lives.
But going back to his question as well, how is Alibaba coping with the low sort of penetration rate of headsets when you're trying to as a retailer?
Well, I mean, so the answer I gave earlier, the first game that we did was there's no need for a headset. It's augmented reality, so all you need is like your app, and so anybody can play, and therefore you had 70 million people playing it. And then when you were talking about cost, and that's what I was mentioning earlier as well, is that like we sold the cardboard mask for 1 RMB. That's 15 cents of a euro. So there's no barrier there, right? Like anybody can spend 15 cents to then have an immersive experience. The only issue is that obviously with a smartphone, the experience that you can have isn't as good as the one that you can have with like a full headset. So the question is, and again, is it going to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? We don't know. Is whether we're going to be able to get that level of grade in a smartphone or in something which might be glasses or something else for $100, right? Okay. Because that's what you would need.
Okay. We have 2 minutes left, and I have to stay on schedule, otherwise I have to yell at myself. So if we can sort of...
a quick question here.
Quickly.
It's also about barrier to cascade the technology of AR, the augmented reality, particularly in China, because you need to have your app to realize this function. We tried to launch a campaign with the AR with Alibaba, then you have to be like a GSKA so that you can get the API. And we tried to launch that on JD, and then technology-wise, it's not realizable. And then WeChat, it doesn't open. So from industry expert perspective, how do you see that we can overcome this technical threshold to make it more popular?
Actually, you have players right now that exist that allow you to develop your virtual reality app and make people not need to download that app and be able to use them on social media platforms like WeChat or Facebook or other platforms, especially WeChat. I'm just thinking of WeChat right now, which means that you can develop some virtual reality content. AR, you were talking about AR. I'm sorry for...
So, I mean, to answer your question, I think, when you said it was JSK and whatever, that's the way we're doing it now. But the idea down the line is to open it to as many people, brands as possible, right? So like maybe like in V1, it's like related only to like a few people, but then down the line, what we want is to be able to have any brand, anybody who has a store, for example, on Tmall, be able to use that technology. We're able to do it with video today, which is like a first step. Tomorrow, be able to like give any brand or any distributor the potential to like do some AR experience. That's something that we'll work towards. It might take 3 years, but we're starting step by step. We'll go faster.
Okay, well, that has taken us to the end of our time. So thank you very much to the panelists.